Welcome back. Well, earlier this week, Johannesburg woke up to hundreds of white butterflies that spread across the skies. Many took to social media to post what they saw. But they also posed questions about where do they come from and where are they going? Well, their annual migration is currently taking place in South Africa. So for more on this, I'm joined by author of a Field Guide to Butterflies of South Africa, Steve Woodhall. Steve, thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon. Fantastic timing, because I want to know where these butterflies are coming from and where are they going?
Oh, good afternoon, Faith, from a hot, sticky and sweaty Durban. And they've actually already reached Durban. When I drove here this morning, we could see quite a few flying across the road, and the numbers will increase as time goes on. But I believe in Johannesburg it was like a snowstorm.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about the butterflies themselves, I know that they've reached Durban now, but how does it all come about? Because I think we're always just shocked at, number one, how many butterflies we actually have, but number two, about just the migration process of it all. So where's the end game, really?
Well, these little butterflies are called pioneer caper whites, or some people call them brown-veined whites. That's the old name. The scientific name is Belenos or rota. They're native not only to South Africa, they're found all over Africa, Arabia, Asia, even Madagascar. And these events happen all over their range. It seems to be a common thing with this particular type of butterfly. And its relatives also tend to do this. And it's really a swarm rather than the migration, because something triggers them to go from their home range, which is usually the arid areas in the southwest of the country, places like the Kalahari and the northern Karoo, where their host plants grow. And their numbers seem to get to a stage where they just explode and head off, usually in the direction of the prevailing wind, but not always. And most of the time you see them heading northeast when you're in Johannesburg, but here in Durban they're actually heading east. So that's what they're doing. They're dispersing from their home range.
Is it a natural occurrence? In other words, it's nothing different from what we've experienced last year, or are we finding that with the reports of climate change that indeed even the migration phenomena in itself has taken on a different kind of outlook?
Yeah. It's been going on for years. I mean, the last really big migration in South Africa was before I arrived here back in '66. I remember in 1989, I lived in Johannesburg, there's a gigantic swarm of these butterflies came across. So it's not something that's recent. It's been going on for many years. And we think, because there's no real certainty as to what triggers it, we think that it's triggered by long droughts in the home range followed by really good rains, which means the host plant, which is in the home range is the shepherd tree, Bosque albitronca, suddenly puts on a massive flush of leaves. And this particular plant also is usually about the only green thing there is during a drought, because it's got a taproot that can be like dozens of meters long down into the earth. So they don't die even in the worst drought. So the butterflies are always there, even in the driest conditions. But when the rains come and the trees put a lot of leaves on them, the numbers of caterpillars, the generation it takes part, it only takes about a couple of weeks for the butterfly to go all the way from egg to adult again. So you get this geometric progression of millions of butterflies just building up in numbers. And at some stage, they just seem to know that they can't stay where they are. They'll just eat all the food, and then they get out of Dodge and move to where there's more food.
I must ask you this, Steve, does it have a time duration? In other words, are we going to be experiencing this phenomena for the next week, or how long does it take before the migration process is actually completed, and then obviously then we start the next cycle?
That's actually a good question, because this particular burst seems to be waning already in Johannesburg. I've heard that the numbers are dwindling, and then we saw the first stragglers in Durban last week, and now they're building up. And it isn't only pioneer caper whites either. There are other white butterflies coming along for the ride. There's one called an African migrant, which is a little bit bigger, more of a greenish white, and doesn't have the black markings on the wings. And at the moment, the ones I've seen down here, it's probably 50% of them are that butterfly. And they also come from the arid areas, but they have a different host plant. Oh, sorry, the caterpillars have a different host plant.
Steve, we're going to leave it there for now, but thanks a lot for joining us and sharing some insight into a phenomenon that certainly got social media and South Africans talking just about the butterflies, as well as where they're going, where do they come from, and exactly what does this mean? Is it climate change? But it appears as though it's a natural phenomenon. It happens every single year, but of course there is a trigger that leads them to actually migrate. Well, it is done. After years of back and forth negotiations, the United Kingdom has officially left the European